Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the moving technologies on AI and machine learning. Today, we have with us Dr. E A Gopalakrishnan, who currently serves as Assistant Professor at Amrita Center of Computational Engineering and Networking, Coimbatore campus. I would request all the students to type your queries in the chat box. We will be addressing all your queries at the end of the session. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome E A Gopalakrishnan sir to take up the session forward.
Thank you, Ms. Nija, for the introduction. So let's begin the session. So first of all, a warm welcome for all my young friends. So today, what are we going to see is the AI ML opportunities that exist in engineering and technology. So when we talk about AI ML opportunities that exist for engineers, we should also view it in a bigger perspective, because world over, people are seeing this as the fourth revolution. So we are all aware that there is a first industrial revolution associated with steam engines, and the next big revolution was electricity, and then came computers, and now AI is supposed to be the fourth revolution. And this fourth revolution actually provides exciting opportunities for your generation. So let us explore what are they. So before we begin exploring the opportunities, let us ask ourselves, what exactly is AI? What is artificial intelligence? AI is the popular acronym for artificial intelligence. There exist multiple definitions for artificial intelligence. I will present to you one of the definitions provided by John McCarthy, who is considered to be the father of artificial intelligence. So in just the definition says that it is the science and engineering of developing machines which are intelligent and which can perform tasks that human beings can perform. However, the AI need not confine itself to the methods that are biologically observable. So this is a very nice definition of AI. So I would like my friends to just keep this definition in your mind as we progress through this presentation. So now, why should we care about AI, or why AI is considered as a fourth revolution by everyone, technology leaders, educators, etc.? Why do they consider AI as a fourth revolution? The reason is AI is there everywhere. So you can see AI in various spheres of human existence. It can be various applications. It can be engineering and technology. It can be any other applications as well. So since we are going to go one by one, I will not be explaining it here. So not only that AI's presence is there everywhere, economically, AI is going to have a great influence. So you can see here that the global market, AI market, is going to grow very high, and it is going to hit around 126 billion USD in another 2 or 3 years. So we can imagine the impact that AI is creating. Not only that, from the perspective of young engineers or people engineering as a profession, the aspirants of engineering stream, you should also look at this data, which says that there is a huge increase in the share of jobs that actually demand AI skills. So that is yet another reason why people are bothered about AI. And now, if we can see the industries where the AI has penetrated already, we can see there is a plethora of industries. There's a spectrum of industries. It starts from logistics, or it starts from real estate up to software technology. So everywhere we can see the presence of AI. And again, in terms of the skills being how they are distributed over countries, we can see US leads. India is actually a hub of AI skills. So again, another important information that we need to see is how world over the technology institutes are viewing the development of AI. So as all of you know, MIT, which happens to be the world leader in technology, they have announced a 1 billion project to promote AI and AI related engineering and technology. So that itself tells us why AI is very, very important. And as far as India is concerned, the regulator of technical education in India, AICTE, has very clearly stated that AI is an emerging technology where we should develop quality human resource. And Government of India has started an India AI mission, and our Prime Minister has already declared that we should aim to make India as a global hub for artificial intelligence. So at this context, we should understand that there is a very good opportunity available for people who are going to be trained in AI. The world is set already to receive them. So that is the first understanding. Now let us start exploring what exactly is the impact of AI on engineering, on various engineering fields, engineering streams. So considering the time limit that we have for our discussion and considering the audience, I have made this presentation in such a way that you can get an overview of impact of AI, whereas we will not dwell too much into any of the details. We can take it up during the Q&A session if you have any specific questions. So recently, all of you might have seen this particular news article, that is India's first 3D printed house has come. So here is what we need to now connect this to the definition that I have already told you. So we told that, or we have seen in that definition, that AI is something wherein we are training machines to do jobs that human beings can do. So you can see the house here, and it is completely 3D printed. And 3D printing is a technology that is fast changing the construction field and also the manufacturing field. So a house which needs around maybe 6 months or 8 months or even earlier, it may require 2 or 3 years for us to build a house. That time limit has now come down in terms of weeks. So this is going to contribute hugely towards the sustainable development or house for all project. That is on one side about the societal development. On the other side, from the technology perspective, we should understand that now if you are aiming a career in civil engineering, or if you're interested in pursuing civil engineering, 3D printing is going to be an integral part of your learning, because you are going to develop 3D printers, or you are going to learn about 3D printers which can get into construction. And again, how do you automate them further? How do you make them more smart? How do you make them more intelligent? So these are the questions that future civil engineers will deal with. So we can see this impact there. And interestingly, we can see that the performance of such a technology is very high. That is, in the sense it is flawless almost. Similarly, not only it is in construction, even in creating the building plan, because I am sure that many of my young friends would not have seen the top left corner building plan, because it is a very old building plan, maybe like 20 years before engineers or architects used to show this on pen and paper, and then they used to tell that this is your bedroom, this is your living room, etc., etc. Now things started changing in post 2000, when computers became very popular and the computer aided design became popular. So that's what you see in the next picture, that is top right picture. So it's a computer aided design of a building. Now we have moved further and we have what is known as building information modeling. So it is not just about building. A building is not just a piece of or it is not just an amalgamation of bricks and cement. You need to include lot of other information. You want to tell about how do you integrate other technology. Maybe you want to have a microgrid on top of your house. You want to have some water conservation schemes attached to your building plan. You want to know how the building has to be like designed for a specific purpose. So all these are getting integrated. Basically, data is getting integrated into your modeling, which results in this building information modeling. So you can see that we are moving from a paper-based modeling to a completely data-based modeling, information-based modeling. So that is where your civil engineering is heading to. Now, it is not just limited to the building plan. Further, if you want to make the design, so you know that designing is one of the major aspects associated with a building, or if you are going for a new product, for that matter, if it is a new automobile, or if you want to launch a new product for anything, design is very, very important. So how do engineers design? How do engineers come up with design? First of all, there are engineering specifications for a specific design depending upon the product. If it is a building, you need to go for the strength, etc. If it is an automobile, you need to see all the loads that are going to act on the automobile, requirements of the automobile, or if it is any other utility based equipment, you need to see all those requirements. So those engineering requirements you need to cater. More than the engineering requirements, another additional feature that you need to see is the aesthetic feature. Aesthetically, it should be appealing. That is, none of us purchase something just because it is engineering level, its performance is so good. We also want it to be aesthetically appealing. So now all this put together, people used to design. And design happens to be one of the key areas of an engineer. No matter which branch you belong to or which branch you want to pursue, every branch of engineering, design is an integral aspect. Now what happens? There is artificial intelligence coming into this domain, and we have something called as generative designs, which actually creates multiple designs in very short amount of time. So you just tell this artificial intelligence framework about your requirement, about the constraints you have, it generates umpteen number of options for you from which you can actually choose. So it actually revolutionizes the field of design. So going further, you can just see here that a simple chair. So earlier, people will never go for this type of a design because there is a subject in many engineering streams which are called as design for manufacturing. That means you need to, when you are designing, you should keep in mind that how it should be manufactured. You cannot just come up with a design that is not really good for fabricating. However, with the advent of technologies like 3D printing, that constraint is already gone. So this generative design can give you very seemingly very complicated but aesthetically very appealing and cost-wise very effective for the company. Not only aesthetically appealing, cost-wise very effective for the company. So it can generate such designs in very short amount of time, and then it can actually be manufactured with the use of technology such as 3D printing. So if you are now moving on from civil engineering to mechanical engineering, so if you are entering into mechanical engineering, if you want to pursue your mechanical engineering, then you need to understand that AI-based techniques are going to be an integral part, or it has to be an integral part of your curriculum for you to be a successful mechanical engineer in future. Now going further, it doesn't stop just designing objects. AI frameworks, this generative design can very interestingly design people. So we may not believe, I am sure that at least some of you would have gone through this. There is a site called People Who Do Not Exist, or Faces That Do Not Exist, which means that all those faces that you are seeing here on this slide, none of them exist. And interestingly, you can see the top row termed as A and the leftmost column termed as B. Now you can see that the other grids are filled by combining certain features of A and B. So not only, so again, A and B are not real faces. There are no real human beings whom you can identify using these pictures. Like there is nobody like who are there here in the screen. So A and B itself is, they are not real, but now combining A and B, the algorithm can design further options. So you can imagine now that if you are working in computer graphics, so now if you are taking up computer science, so finally now you may be approached by a company to design a beautiful model or a handsome model for their product. So we may not even, we may be in a situation in another 5 years or 10 years, we may be seeing an advertisement in which somebody comes and then markets a product, but such a person need not exist at all. So that is the power of AI, especially in the area of generative design. Now, going further, if you are again another important area that engineers, after developing these objects, these structures, they want to monitor these structures. For example, if you have built a large bridge, or if you have made an automobile, or if you have made a building, then now you need to know what is happening to this particular object. So if you want to see like what is happening to a particular bridge. So what is the contribution of AI here? AI has integrated the sensing technology, otherwise it is known as the IoT. So now you have sensors all over the place, so which collects the data, and now AI technology is used to fuse this data, and you can make intelligent decisions based on the data. So this is now called as structural health monitoring. So just like we monitor our health, we can monitor the health of structures, machineries. So you might have heard from your seniors or your senior family members about a branch of engineering called as maintenance engineering. So usually they say that this is for maintenance, there is a maintenance overhaul, so it is going to be like the plant is going to be shut down, etc. So those times are over now. So we are now talking about predictive maintenance, preventive maintenance, etc. That means you are continuously monitoring the system, and then you are taking the data from the system, analyzing the data using an AI framework, and AI framework will tell you, come on, please see the machine on this particular floor, and the machine may get a repair or it may get into trouble in this particular time window. So you can be ready, you can be prepared. So this production planning and control, which is a big area in engineering, AI is entering into that area as well. So we have now seen that from the process of generating a design up to the implementation, there is penetration of AI. So now going further, if you are thinking that AI is limited to structures which are there on land, now if you are talking about airplanes, so if you want to see the application of AI or what is the effect of AI on aerospace industry, it is again you want to design an airplane. Now the main constraint or main problem with an airplane is that it has to have enough strength. At the same time, the weight of the airplane is actually a deterrent for any company, because if you are making it too heavy, then you are going to spend too much on fuel. So you want to make it lightweight. At the same time, the strength cannot be compromised, because it is an industry where reliability has to be 100%. So now what happens? You need to go in search of new materials. So new composite materials which will give you enough strength, at the same time their weight will be less compared to the conventional material. So you can have more payload. That means you can have more passengers in the same airplane. So that is from the design. Then again, if you want to make the airplane more efficient, because one major problem with the industry is that whenever your plane is not flying, if you are paying the money and then you are at a loss, and whenever it is flying, even a small amount of saving in fuel is going to give you a huge cost benefit. So that again AI models are helping there by means of understanding how the airplane engines work and how the airplane engines can operate in lean fuel limits without getting into problems, how they can still remain in safe operational regime. And again, it is used for maintenance of these structures. So it is not only just concerned with the design of airplane, flying of airplane, but also if you want to train pilots, that is if you want quality pilots. So once now if you are coming to the airline side, so you want to manage the air traffic, or you want to identify the passengers, you want to do threat identification. So all that is the airport maintenance activity. So the technology related with the construction and flying of an airplane as well as operation of an airplane, both areas we can see AI has penetrated, and the knowledge of AI is definitely required, and it is going to give an upper hand for an individual who is trained in aerospace engineering. So if you are an aerospace engineer with AI, or you are AI enabled aerospace engineer, your opportunities are much more. So now going further, if you are coming back again, so we know that the airplanes are fine, they are all doing that. Now come to your car. So I am sure that most of you are you very well know that the cars that your parents are using, they are actually like a computer. That is, you have a lot of sensors in it. Everything is automated. You have speech control, you have gesture control, and even there are cars which monitor the vitals of the driver, and there are cars which monitor whether the driver is awake or not. There is an automatic system to avoid accidents because the driver is sleeping. So most of the accidents occur because of that. So now what is happening? Your car has become a computer, and your car is no more just a car, just like the old car. It is a computer on wheels. So that is the reason why if you have gone to any maintenance shop of a new model car, you can see that the maintenance engineer is no more appearing like the old maintenance engineer. So he has a computer and he has lot of wires, lot of other connections, and then he just plugs in all these into different ports of your automobile, fetches the data, just like a doctor is seeing our ECG or EEG. He is telling about all this. And not only that, and if you are into the, if you have purchased some of the modern brands, then he may even tell you that you have done a service in a particular service station which is not actually authorized. So we can see a log there. So you can see how the automobile industry has gone, in which direction it has gone. So if you want to create a car, you cannot just confine yourself to the technology of an IC engine or just the technology of steering system. All that is not enough. So whatever a conventional mechanical engineer is learning, it is not enough now to get into an automobile industry or to excel in an automobile industry. You have to be again AI enabled, and you have to have the AI literacy. So this is again another example of a futuristic car, and in fact this is as a part of the automotive styling competition conducted by Siam during 2018. This design was proposed and it got the first runner up. So it is a very interesting car. You can see that there is a roof there, and this roof is having a solar cell, and the car is made of a composite, and it is actually made by generative design and printed using 3D printing. So this is the technology. So we think that many people may feel that this is a science fiction, but this is not a fiction anymore. That is why I showed you the first 3D printed house in India by the IIT Madras alumni in a previous slide. So you can see that the automobile industry is going in the direction where AI is getting integrated heavily from the start of the design up to the operation level. So you need to be AI enabled, or you need to know about the principles of AI. And again, this is the famous Tesla's factory. So you know that now the major car company is a major threat to existing automobile companies. It is Tesla. And you can imagine that itself explains you how this artificial intelligence has penetrated into the automobile industry. So the entire factory, the entire assembly line is automated. So think of something. Now, if you want to schedule an activity, if you want to plan an activity, if you want to do something in this assembly line, and if you are not aware of industrial automation, if you are not aware of robotics, if you are not aware of artificial intelligence, then how come you are going to have a place here in this particular factory, which is completely automated? So the old idea is getting changed rapidly. So to move with this particular current, or to be there in the stream, you have to understand the impact of AI, and you have to start looking for opportunities to learn AI. Now, not only just in production and also in analysis, that is one major area that many chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers, aerospace engineers, many of these engineers belong to these branches. They work in an area called as computational fluid dynamics. So many of your senior family members or senior friends may be able to tell you what it is exactly. So this computational fluid dynamics deals with the flow simulations. That is how flow will be around a particular structure. because it is important. If you are designing any structure that is moving, then the air is going to create a resistance. So you need to reduce the air resistance. At the same time, as I told you in the beginning, it has to be aesthetically appearing, and not only for automobiles, for various other applications. For example, if there is a contaminant that is being poured onto an ocean and you want to know how the contaminant is going to spread, you need to study the fluid flow, you need to study the structures that the fluid flow will have. So now this is considered to be one of the toughest topics because it deals with what is known as partial differential equations, and especially partial differential equations which do not have analytical solution. So that is the reason why computation has crept in, and computational fluid dynamics is a very a well-established field. Now what is happening? This computational fluid dynamics depends upon computer simulations. Now AI has gone there, or AI has entered that area, and we have AI assisted CFD. So you are not actually running the entire simulation, but you are creating these images using AI technology, which are comparable in quality to the images created by a full computer simulation, and the error is very minimal. So that means using AI, we can actually augment CFD. That means we can add things to CFD, and even at times you can remove CFD because CFD data is available in plenty. So you can see the opportunity of engineers or engineering aspirants who are going to work in all this area, how it is intertwined with their capacity or their capability that they need to develop in AI. Similarly, another area is electrical engineering. If you take, so the traditional electrical engineering is there is a central generation. You have a central powerhouse where power is getting generated and the power is transmitted and it is distributed. You have distribution station, etc. Now, what is happening nowadays? You can see that every state electricity boards, they encourage people to have solar panels on their rooftop. Why? Because they are creating smaller units of generating power, and the distribution as well as generation, it has become decentralized. That is the first thing. Second thing, we are moving away from the fossil fuels. We are depending more and more on the renewable energy sources, like basically solar or wind energy or solar energy or tidal energy. These renewable sources are the ones which people are looking for. And people are creating what is known as microgrids. So many of you might have seen stories of a specific village in a particular district being completely like electrified using a microgrid, using the renewable sources of energy. So renewable is getting into power generation, and again your distribution and generation has become decentralized. And also there is another aspect, that is all power grids are getting connected. So what happens is that because of all this, there is a possibility that anything goes wrong at one particular point, it may spread like a there can be an effect which is like which can spread over all the powerhouses, and generally then suddenly the entire region can go for a blackout. So you may remember when our Prime Minister asked us to switch off the lights and switch on the lights during the first wave of the pandemic. Many were fearing such a power disruption, or there can be a shock in the power system, which never happened because of the precautions taken by the national grid and our powerhouses in various states. So now artificial intelligence, what it does, it makes your power grid smart. So that's why it is called as a smart grid. So now you have data generation, that means the power that is being generated. So from the generator side to the distribution and to the consumption, all these areas AI has been integrated. So you can control generation. So if you are, first of all, you want to know how much renewable energy should be there, how much conventional energy should be there. You need to decide. You have to go for a forecast, because if you are a power generator, if you are a big corporate giving power to a particular city. Now, if you are not providing power, if you are shutting it down, then you will have to give a huge amount in compensation. So to avoid that, you need to have a prediction about how much you need. So that prediction is helped by this AI. So that is in the generation side. Again, in the distribution side, you want to know if there is any fault anywhere. You need to quickly identify which place has a particular fault and what fault it has, and you have to rectify it. So that again, using AI technology, you can do it. And even there are smart meters which monitor the household connections in an effective way. So you can see that AI has penetrated largely into this domain of electrical engineering. And another very interesting problem that engineers do is designing chips. So you know that this is a job of a major job of an electronics engineer when he is getting into his postgraduate program. So after the 4 years of training, so this is the most coveted, most desired job of an electronics engineer. So if you are going into chip design and if you are an expert in it, there are many opportunities that exist for you. So how AI is getting into that? So this is a picture of a latest chip that is designed by the Google AI. And believe me or not, the Google AI has used the logic of a board game to develop this chip design. And what is that logic? I will just spend a minute on that logic. The logic is called as a deep reinforcement learning. So what in just deep reinforcement learning, I can tell you in a very non-mathematical way, what I can explain about it is about how do we learn. That is, for example, how we have learned certain things. If I throw a ball at you, you have to catch the ball. So you just initially, when you are a kid, you may not be able to catch it. After some time, you get trained and you can catch the ball correctly. Now, just use your +2 physics and think of it as a physics problem. So as a physics problem, how it can be posed? So a person is throwing a ball at a certain angle, at a certain initial velocity, and the ball travels through air. You have to consider the air resistance, and the other person has to catch the ball exactly at this particular height after this particular horizontal distance. So this is a projectile motion problem. All of you may be doing it as a part of your engineering entrance examination training. So now ask yourself, have you ever used any projectile motion equation to catch a ball when somebody threw a ball at you? Like just simply we just caught hold of the ball. We never did any mathematics. We are not solving any differential equation. We are not thinking about Newton's laws of motion, etc. Why? Because we learned it by practicing it. So till now, what people were doing for the robotic manipulators or intelligent machines, so-called quote-unquote intelligent machines, we were trying to teach them the laws of the logic, laws of reasoning. Like this is how, that is, for example, if somebody is, for example, in this particular example, if a ball is thrown, so we will try to make the machine understand about the laws of motion, and the machine should act according to the laws of motion. But now a revolution has happened wherein the machine can just learn by observing things. That is called reinforcement learning. It is just like how a kid learns. So a kid is observing how somebody is catching a ball. So every time the kid catches the ball, we will appreciate the kid. We will clap or something like that. The kid gets some encouragement. And every time it fails to catch the ball, it feels somewhat bad. So there is a penalty for an action that is not intended, and there is a reward for an action that is intended. Desired action, there is a reward, and any action that is not desired, there is a penalty. So this way you learn that without, the kid is not learning any Newton's laws of motion. So this is the logic behind reinforcement learning, and the higher version of that is called as the deep reinforcement learning. Using that, Google has actually developed this chip. This is a very, very difficult problem in chip design. You want to see how the circuit has to be, because you know that this is the reason why we have our electronic devices, like we have smartphones, everything that is there in a, like we can keep it in a pocket. So you may be, if you are just searching Google for a computer in 1970s, 50s, it is a big room. So whatever our smartphone can do, if we want such a computer, just if we have not progressed in terms of communication technology, then we would have taken an entire street to make a smartphone. You cannot have it in your pocket. So now this is the biggest problem in engineering, and which is being solved by Google AI using the philosophy of a board game. So that is the beauty of this particular thing. So you should understand that. Now going further, if you are entering into chemical engineering, so we have seen applications in civil engineering, applications in mechanical engineering, applications in aerospace engineering, applications in electrical engineering, electronics and communication. And now if we are entering into chemical engineering, one major problem is you need to design a drug. So nowadays we are talking about personalized drugs which have less interaction. For example, during the pandemic, if somebody gets into, that is unfortunately, if somebody gets COVID, and if the person has comorbidities, and if he or she is already taking some medicine, now we need to know the drugs that you administer for COVID, whether they are going to, these drugs are going to interact with the drugs that the person is already consuming, the drug to drug interaction. So you want to know the drug to drug interaction and you want to minimize it. And again, people are hugely investing in understanding what type of diseases that a particular population is prone to, because everything is there in our genome. So by understanding the genome, you can understand everything about the person. So even about the diseases that the person can get. So can I design a drug based on that? That's what people are now looking at. And how do you do? It is very difficult for a human engineer to do that or a human scientist to do that, because there are a lot of parallel options. You have to select each option, then understand its pros and cons and reject it or accept it. So we cannot we cannot do anything. Parallel processing is not easy for us. Whereas an AI based technology or an AI framework can create any number of designs or designs, drug molecules, structure of the drug molecule it wants. It can do parallelly, it can process, and it can come up with the desired drug. So it is not only for the drug discovery, it is also for the material. Remember, I was telling about the materials, the new materials that we may require in order to create objects. Like for example, you want to have a composite for creating an airplane, or you want a composite for creating your automobile. Now, how do you create such a composite? So the only thing that you know is this particular material should have this much strength. That means it should have this much strength when it is undergoing an impact, or in crash test it should survive with this much star rating. So this is the only requirement that the end user has. So usually the problem with us is this is a reverse engineering problem now, because the other problem we know, for example, if you take carbon, if you take silicon, if you take anything for that matter, any compound or any element if you are taking, you can easily understand, you can create an object out of it using all engineering knowledge, all basic physics, chemistry knowledge. You can understand what are the properties of the material. It is okay. Now we have established techniques for that. However, this problem is reverse of that. You know the properties that you want, but you do not know the material. You want to design a material with these desired properties, and AI is the solution for that. And many companies, many technology leaders, many universities are entering into AI assisted material selection. So AI helps you in selecting a particular material or even creating a particular material, because it's a combination of basic elements. So it is assisting you in that. So going further, you can create an AI assisted material selection. So here you can see a small cartoon. So it shows like earlier you create one material, test it, then understand what is the property, then either you have to test it in a physical experiment or in a simulation experiment, because simulations are nowadays available. However, in AI, you are not even going to that stage. Even before that, AI can do this process for you. The framework can do this process for you and help you in understanding the proper material selection. So you can see that AI has penetrated there as well. And going further, it is not just related to the applications in this way. It is also related to applications which are directly involved in society or direct societal applications. For example, you want to create a surveillance system. How do you create a surveillance system? So this is a Boston Dynamics dog that is employed for surveillance. So here you have a technology solution based on artificial intelligence. So you need to know a lot of technologies involved in it. You can see that it has to see, and it has to move, it has to interpret. So what all things it needs? It needs vision, it needs a computing capacity, it needs actuators to move it, and it needs control because it may have to climb, it may have to run, it has to walk, all that. And then interestingly, we should understand one more thing. When you are employing such a surveillance unit, it is not that you are feeding all possible data into it. That means you are telling how it should move, where it should move, etc. You are only giving certain set of instructions to it. Based on the certain set of instructions, it is understanding. For example, you show all possible human faces to this particular system so that it will identify a human being. It is not practically possible. So people think, when we say about intelligent machine, people think that it is the intelligence of the programmer. So I would like to tell my young friends that you should, if you have such a notion, that is not completely correct. So it is not like you are feeding all possible information. You are only feeding the rules. Just like in our DNA, there are rules. You are just feeding the basic rules to it. So you will make it capable of identifying a human being from a tree. So it will identify, it can distinguish between a human being and a tree. That's all it can do. But you are not going to give all information about all possible trees. That is not possible also. So now, and again, you cannot train it in all possible terrains. So it has a lot of its own capability that it is developing. So that is the beauty of these intelligent machines. So these are not first generation machines. We should understand that. And again, you can have a surveillance robot. So another thing that we need to keep in mind is that whenever we talk about artificial intelligence or robotics, always what comes to our mind is a humanoid, because that is the anthropogenic thinking or anthropocentric thinking, because we are all human beings. So whatever we think about, it will all be in human form. So it need not be. So even your mobile is an AI assisted device. So we should think it in that direction. So that is the level of penetration of technology. And again, yet another area where AI is entering into and engineers or engineering aspirants should be aware of is the area of medicine or healthcare. So you have remotely operating healthcare units. So you cannot go and see a doctor, that we have seen all through these past 2-3 years. How do you interact with your doctor? And how can you make medical facilities accessible for everyone? How can you make an inclusive progress in this particular area? It is by incorporating AI technology. And you have again another area where you have is wearable devices. So this I am sure that all of you know, because you just, if you have any mobile phone of any system that you have, and you go to your health application or health app in that mobile phone, it tells you you have just taken this many steps today, or your heartbeat is this much, or you have slept for this much. You should understand this amazing power of these devices and its power to understand about you. So now we are telling about a situation where the engineering or technology has gone into healthcare, where we can monitor the vitals of an individual, and then we can transmit these vitals to a cloud, and it can be computed, and using this computation you can get alerts. So it can tell you that you need to see and go and see your cardiologist at this particular time, or there is a problem with your eye, so please go to your ophthalmologist. And what is the benefit of it? We have a serious lack of trained medical professionals all over the globe, and especially in our country. So the medical professional can now prioritize. So you can just give priority to the person who needs the attention the maximum, or immediately who needs the attention, you can give the priority to that particular person. So this is possible by integrating AI into healthcare. And again, AI into hospitality or banking. That is nowadays, this is again not a fiction. So this is a reality. So you can go to a bank, and there are robo-assisted restaurants. Many of my friends may be knowing it. So a robo is actually assisting you, helping you in going through that. Now, AI in retail marketing. So again, this is another big opportunity available, especially for the young engineering aspirants of our country, because you know that the retail market is India has the biggest retail market. And now think of technology integration in this. And we are not that far in this. We have not gone that far. So again, another area is about drones. So not only for delivering goods, it can be used during a disaster. It can be used during a pandemic or a situation which demands that human beings cannot enter there. And again, for surveillance. So if you want to conserve wildlife, if you want to monitor forest fire, or even recently you might have seen a news that is going on very recently, that about a youngster who tried to climb a mountain, and then he had an issue and he got stuck into the mountain, and the Indian army was able to find him using drones. Like before they arrived, the local administration has used drones to locate his body. So technology, how it grows, and it is there already there in our neighborhood. So if you are an engineer and still if you are not going to learn all this, you have to be extremely cautious. Okay, so now going further, after knowing all this, now how do I choose a good program in AI? So there are two opportunities or two options. One, you can choose an explicit, a specific program in AI itself, or you need to choose a program where AI is integrated into the curriculum. However, you need to understand by this that AI is going to be an integral part, so it has to be an integral part of your undergraduate program as well. Now, for choosing the undergraduate program, you should look at three aspects. One, you should look at the curriculum. Two, you look at the pedagogy and effective assessment. Three, you should look at the presence of high quality faculty. So now I can tell you about one example that we have in Amrita. So we have an explicit AI program in Amrita, and our program focuses on mathematics, computational tools and techniques, and domain expertise. So these are the three aspects of a good AI program's curriculum should have all these three aspects. So you can see all from semester 1 to 6 you will be learning mathematics, and you will have a lot of exposure to latest state of the art AI techniques, and you have what are known as verticals or baskets, which are like robotics, cyber security, healthcare, and finance, and genomics, and whatnot. So these are all areas which you can actually specialize as you progress after your second year. And again, our pedagogy, this is very important. So not only the curriculum, you should also look at the pedagogy of the program that you want to get into, because the pedagogy should not be an old pedagogy where importance is given to written examination. So you can understand, we are talking about drones, we are talking about 3D printing, we are talking about real-time calculation. So all this you cannot do by writing examination, write 10 advantages of drones and with a neat sketch explain 3D printing. That will not leave you anywhere. So please understand that your program, whichever program that you want to join, you should ask yourself whether the program is focusing on computing, whether you are able to get exposure to computing, whether computing is an integral part of teaching, or again, do you have written examination? So again, it is about us. And for implementing all this, you need a very good team. So considering the time limit, I am not going to introduce everybody. I will just tell a word about our head of the center, who happens to be a scientist listed by Stanford in the area of artificial intelligence. Now, what is the proof of all this? So this is a testament from one of our students. So she says that she wanted to go to IIT. Now she is in third year. So she is extremely happy that she made a decision to join with us. And again, you can see here some of our MTech alumni. And one last thing that may interest many of you is the salary package available for AI or an ML engineer. So you can see here the various figures for AI ML engineers. And one particular slide that I will show here, this shows the left one shows the average salary for a normal engineer, whereas the right one shows the salary for an AI engineer. And you can see the highest salary for the normal engineer is less than the average of the AI engineer now. So you can decide. Now, this shows the pathway. So going further, we need to understand that AI is going to take further, say, acceleration, and it is definitely going to surpass the human intelligence. And this is an important article. Just I will ask you to read it whenever you get time. That is, we know Copernicus discovered the heliocentric theory. So there is a set of scientists from ET Zurich. They had a machine learning algorithm, that is an AI algorithm, which actually discovered heliocentric theory from observation. So you can understand the capacity of AI. So it is not just confined to engineering and technology. It is capable of discovering what we discovered using centuries. It discovered in a few months or maybe less than that. Then again, the last point is, when such a technology comes, there is always a problem of how do we use the technology. There is an associated problem of ethics. So whenever you choose a program, you should always be thinking about the amount of values and ethics also that you should learn as a part of your UG program. And as our chancellor and my spiritual guru, Amma, whom we call lovingly as Amma, Mata Amrita Devi, she says, all research should finally focus on the benefit of society. So I welcome all of you to explore the possibility of doing your undergraduate program in Amrita, where we have an explicit program on AI, and all other programs where we have integrated AI, other branches where we have integrated AI, and it is taught along with values, and compassion-driven research is one of our major focus. So I welcome all of you to explore the opportunities. Thank you all for patient listening, and I am extremely happy to answer your questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for an excellent session. We are really happy to have you today for today's session. So let's head over to the Q&A. Students, if you have any questions, please type it in the chat box. So the first question is, in which all companies can we get a job after completing BTech with AI?
Okay, good question. And in fact, why it is a good question? Because it is an easy question. That's why I say it's a good question, because my answer will be in any company that you want. Because basically, we are thinking that there are companies like, for example, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, TCS Digital, who are all looking explicitly for AI students. However, as I pointed out, many of the automobile companies are getting into AI. Many of power companies are getting into AI. Many of the aerospace companies are getting into AI. So, and many of the banks, that is one of the options that may allure many of you, because your salaries will be maybe 4 or 5 times that of an engineer working in a factory. So that again, so anywhere if you apply, depending upon the domain where you have developed your expertise, you can develop your career.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The next question is, can you please explain how AI is integrated to aerospace engineering?
Yeah, explained there, like, first of all, from the process of designing to the process of operating an airplane, you have AI integration. So first is basically the design of an airplane, the material selection. So nowadays you are not going to confine yourself with the conventional materials, which are not going to be cost effective. So you need to develop novel composites. So for that you need AI. And while the airplane is flying, you have to talk a lot about, or you have to think a lot about the stability or the control of the airplane. So again, there you have AI integration. And again, about the operational aspects of AI, an airline or an airplane flying in an airline, you have AI integrated to that.
Thank you, sir. The next question is machine learning included in computer science with AI?
Machine learning is in fact one of the techniques of artificial intelligence, because sometimes machine learning is called as machine learning. Sometimes you may have heard of a term called deep learning. So these are all techniques that are employed. So artificial intelligence is the large umbrella. So now, how do you make a machine intelligent? How do you make a system intelligent? By means of training it. And what are the algorithms that you use in order to train a machine? So there are algorithms which are called as a set of algorithms. We term them as machine learning algorithms. Another set of algorithms, it is called as a deep learning algorithm. So machine learning is an integral part of an AI program.
Thank you so much, sir. That's all we have from the students. Students, I can see that you are asking so many questions related to admissions. So kindly see in the description, we have an email ID. Please type your queries regarding admissions to that email ID. One of our counselors will be addressing all your queries. So thank you so much. We all have this for today, and yeah, we'll see you all for another session. We will be having Saturday series on every Saturdays. So we'll see you on next Saturday for another session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.